Alright, well, this is a completely unplanned video. I was checking my email, actually getting caught up on email yesterday, and noticed that Warlord just dropped another FAQ for bolt action. And so, of course, I immediately downloaded it and started reading through it. I thought, wait, we should probably go over this, since, especially now with, I'm seeing a lot of new bolt action players watching through my bolt action boot camp or basic training series. I thought, let's put a FAQ video in there just to make sure we tie up any loose ends with the latest information that Warlord's put out. We're going to break this video into 3 sections. Because again, this is a FAQ and errata, and there's a few different places they're making changes and answer questions. So we're going to talk first about rules, either changes or clarifications. Then we're going to go into units, and then we're going to talk a little bit about, that's basically units changes to units. And then we're going to talk about some of the platoon selector changes and updates that they've also done as well. So 3 quick sections. I went through it. There's quite a bit here, but they're little things. So this won't thankfully be a very, very long video, but let's kind of dive in and take a look at what we've got. Alright, so first we're going to talk about just the rule changes, and we're going to cover any of the rule stuff. So it'll be changes as well as FAQs, questions that have been answered. And we'll deal with this, we'll just basically go through the document if you don't mind, pardon the glasses, but we're just going to scroll through this. Now it's a 32-page document. Fortunately, for those of you who haven't seen a bolt action FAQ or errata before, you're definitely going to want to read through the whole thing to kind of see, well, what's different from what you've been seeing in the rule books. But you're going to notice that things are going to be highlighted in green. Those will be the things that are changed from this version, from the prior version, or added. Okay, so we're just going to kind of scroll down through the various pages for the errata. And the first one we come to is actually on page 16. It's under the frequently asked questions section, the very first one. It's talking about scenario 12, which is sectors. Now, this is the question essentially is that it's listed as an attacker-defender scenario, but there is no clear definition of attacker or defender in that particular scenario. So what do you do? How do you do this? Because in the normal rules, in attacker-defender scenarios, the defender sets up their forward deployment, stuff like snipers and spotters, and then the attacker does it afterward. Whereas in the regular first 6 missions, the regular battle scenarios, it's going to be alternating with a roll-off. So what they've done is they've actually answered this. There's 2 basic parts of this question. First one, how do you do the forward deploy? And second is, presumably the observers and snipers can set up outside the quarter of the board that is the setup area for your normal units. Presumably, though, they can't set up within the center 12-inch bubble. Well, here's the actual answer. So I'm going to read it verbatim so that you can see it. Looks like this scenario is in the wrong section. It is definitely a battle scenario, not an attacker-defender scenario. Now, it's hard to believe the book's been out for so many years and the question's finally been asked. So treat it as a battle scenario for all rule purposes. So, for example, snipers, observers, etc. are set up alternating anywhere on the player's half of the table. That means even within 12 inches of the center of the table. So, just like normal. So that's going to be important because in this particular scenario, you're trying to basically get into the opposite corner of the table. And so having a forward deploying unit within 12 inches of the center puts them that much closer to the other corner or sector, the opposite sector. It's kind of risky because this is going to draw a lot of fire. But at least it clarifies it that you're alternating the deployment, and then you're the entire your half of the table, like in a regular battle scenario. Alright, so let's go on to the next one that we run across. And that is, same page. And I cannot believe this, the timing of this, because literally the night before I downloaded this, I had just finished recording a house rule video for this series, and boom, here it shows up in the FAQ. So I'm going to scratch that. I'm not even going to bother publishing that particular video. So that video is answered in this question. So here it is. If a heavy artillery piece is not deployed, like in scenarios where everything starts off the map, and the Army doesn't include a tow or towing vehicle, does it mean that the artillery piece cannot enter the battle? Is it lost? Like reserves that fail to enter? Now, rules is written for it. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And that's how the advice in all the Facebook groups has always been. Always bring a tow, because you never know if you're going to have a scenario like this. Otherwise, you're going to basically have a useless unit. Well, that's changed as of this download. Warlord's official answer is, we will make an exception to the rules in this case, allowing heavy guns that start off the table and have no tow, a single 6-inch move when they enter the table as first wave or from reserves, no outflanking, which makes sense. Imagine that a horse-drawn limber or vehicle has towed them up to the very edge of the table and then hastily retreated. That's essentially what we were doing in the house rule I came up with my friend Dave. And so this is actually a very good change, because it really helps when you're introducing new players to the game. Of course, they want the cool toys, right? German player wants his 88. The British player wants his 17-pounder because they're cool, but they don't buy the vehicle to tow it on the field with. You don't want to, you don't want the bad experience of that player to be occurring because of a rule mistake, and they don't really understand the implications of such a large gun. So this is actually, I think, a nice sportsman-like way of handling the situation. So good change in my opinion, because again, it marries up pretty well with the house rule I was about to release. All right, so let's see. Next rule, it's on the following page. This is pretty good, and you know what? I don't even know if I was very clear in my special weapons lesson on this particular point. So we're going to make sure the clarification's in this video. Rules say a flamethrowers have half chance, 50-50 chance, of catching a building on fire if used on targets in the building. Does this mean it has a chance to set the fire even if it fails to hit roll? Honestly, never thought about that aspect. Again, I may not have even mentioned it in my video. But the answer is yes. If the flamethrower is found to be within range of the building, then roll to see whether the building catches fire, regardless of whether it scores a hit on the target unit or not. That's big, because that means, yes, you might not be able to hurt the unit, but if you set that building on fire, that unit immediately has to abandon the building, which is probably a good thing, because they're probably not going to want to come out right in front of the building where your flamethrower and other units are going to be able to draw fire on them. They're probably going to want to retreat beyond it. So this is probably this is something good to keep in mind, and we'll have to see when the circumstance happens how you might be able to take advantage of the unit fleeing the building. Okay. The next, let's see here. See if there's another one. Here we go. Okay, this is page 20. And this has actually come up before, and I know you've seen it in our different battle reports here. And again, I may have explicitly stated this in my vehicles lesson. But can recce vehicles make an escape move whilst under an ambush order? And the answer is yes, they can. Just like any other unit remember, a recce move results in the unit going down, so it's a reaction. So yes, they can. If they do so, they of course lose the advantages of ambush, as their dice is turned to advance or run after the escape move. Very simple. So that's another very good benefit of the recce vehicle. If you're forced to pull them early, just go ahead and put an ambush on them. That way you don't give up that chance to recce away if you need to. All right, the next one is on the following page, 21. And this is again a clarification in the rules, which should be pretty clear if you read them. Snipers ignore all 2-hit penalties except pins and losing their assistant. So if you're using hidden setup, does anything in hidden setup not gain benefit if it's shot up by a sniper? And that's correct. They gain, the units that are set up with hidden setup gain no benefits against a sniper shot. I love the humor here. They obviously were not as well hidden as they thought. Remember, hidden units essentially increases the cover save of the unit. It doesn't make them impossible to see. So what you're going to, obviously a sniper isn't affected by cover bonuses, so, or down, right? So it just, there's no benefit at all for that. That's why snipers are very good when you run into those particular scenarios. All right, then the next one, the same page. Can you please offer clarification on when the bombs get placed for partisan armies? When you build a partisan army, you have a handful of bomb markers that are placed on the battlefield, and when an enemy unit moves within a certain distance of those, they will potentially explode or be revealed as fakes. But the thing is, those are placed after deployment, and the question here is, well, when exactly do they do? And that's important, and you'll see why in the answer. The answer is, the simplest solution is that the bombs get placed after both sides have finished setup, but before the first turn of the game. And remember, on the first turn, before the Rangers lead the way rules are executed, or before preparative bombardment rules are played out. So this is probably the very first thing that happens after you place your forward deployment deployers, you know, snipers, observers, and the such, and spotters. All right, let's see. Do we have some more? We're starting to get into the Army book specific FAQs. We're going to see if there are any rule changes there, clarifications there. There is one kind of a rule clarification, and what I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you. This is actually on page 32, and within the Mariana and Palau Islands book, campaign book, there's a canister round that's available for the 37mm M2 canister round that's available for the light anti-tank gun. Anyway, the rules for it, they basically, it's like a shotgun blast, right? But they were kind of wondering, well, the rules for the use of this ammo type do not have any provision for blocking terrain. As written, the canister round will shoot through, for example, a stone building, potentially hitting units behind it. This doesn't sound right. That's what their observation was. So I don't have the particular supplement, so I'm going to take the word for the need for clarification here. The answer is this: let's rule that any terrain providing hard cover or better that is at least as tall as a man, so figure about an inch tall, at least an inch tall, would stop the shot completely. So only units between the barrel and that terrain piece are affected. Nothing behind it is affected, which kind of makes sense, because this isn't an arcing shot, this is a blast. It's just like a shotgun, essentially. Alrighty, let's see if we have anything else. Okay, yeah, that's the end. It's actually on the last page. So, not a whole lot, but there's some very key clarifications in these rules. So let's take a look through the document and see what we've got as far as new units and changes to existing units. All right, so throughout all of the different campaign books and the Army's books, there's a lot of units that are presented, and you're going to find throughout the FAQ errata document past issues or situations where they've corrected certain entries. So when you first, as you're learning, you get your Army book and you start learning the game, definitely pick up the FAQ and look through the section on your Army book and any of the other pieces of campaign books that you happen to have you're pulling units from, because you're going to have the corrections right in there. So let's go ahead and start, and we're going to just go to the very first one, and I'm really glad to see this one. So many years after the French and Allies book came out, they finally make a correction. Now it's kind of interesting. A couple years, literally 2 years ago, 2019, I emailed Warlord Games about this particular entry for the Renault R35 tank, and I let them know that there was an error in the way the machine gun was outfitted. And I'm not saying that this is why they put it in there, but it's finally, after 2 years, it's finally the change has been made. So here's what it is. On the R35 tank entry, which also allows you to upgrade to the R39 or R40, the base equipment or weapons on it is the light anti-tank gun. I believe it's low velocity the way it comes, but it doesn't have a hull-mounted medium machine gun. Instead, it's a coaxial medium machine gun, which is exactly the way the tank was really designed. They also say when this applies, they reduce the cost of the tank by 5 points. So that's good. I mean, that's a nice little change to make it a little bit cheaper. 5 points is 5 points, and it could be something else you want to bring into your army, allow you to buy it. So that's going to affect anywhere you'd be able to buy an R35, which would be the French for sure. And I think the Polish you also get the R35, I believe, if I remember correctly. And I think they had a few others in a couple other countries that might be able to use those. So nice change. Finally get the weapons set up correctly. Now it's interesting. There's also something that's listed out. They actually have in some of these books. They have a medium automatic cannon. Well, the reality is that doesn't exist. There is no such thing as a medium automatic cannon anywhere in the books. It shouldn't be there. So essentially, anytime you see medium automatic cannon, you treat that as a heavy. It means heavy automatic cannon. Okay, you either have something that's basically 20 millimeter or less, or 25 millimeter or less, or 30 millimeter or more. It's basically the way it runs. All right. Now, this is actually kind of neat because as you move further down the document, we get a new unit. And I love when they put new units in. This one doesn't really affect me because I don't play the US, but this one's the E7-7 mechanized flamethrower. Essentially, it's a Stuart light tank with a flamethrower. Essentially, I'll throw a picture up here to kind of show you what they really look like. So let's go over the stats real quick. I'm not going to actually give you all the point values, but how it's equipped, okay? Essentially, it's a single weapon. It's a turret-mounted flamethrower with a coaxial medium machine gun. That's all it has. It is still a light tank. So what's really neat is because this is the M5A1, it's the latest Stuarts, so it obviously has the reinforced armor, which gives you a +1, basically 9+ armor from the front, but it's treated like an 8+ armor vehicle from the other sides. Now, because it's a flamethrower tank, it has the same issues flamethrower vehicles have, being more vulnerable when they're hit by or penetrated during an anti-tank round or an anti-tank attack. All right, so that's not too bad. It gives us more toys to play with, especially if you like modeling some of these different weapons that were fielded, even maybe not in large numbers. All right, next section that comes up is actually kind of interesting. It's actually kind of near and dear to my heart because in the same email I sent Warlord about the R35 tank correction I suggested, I also told him about the Poles really need to have motorcycle sections, much like the Kretschützen and the Germans had, because they used them heavily, not just in the mechanized divisions, but mechanized brigades, the two of them, but just other parts of the army. So last FAQ they came out with, they had it in there. I was so excited. And of course, they had a model for the motorcycle with sidecar, which is a lot of these. That's the way a lot of these were equipped. But they made an error, and I just earlier with the last time, as soon as they came out with that FAQ the last time, I pointed out an error. They made the same error in this selection as they did in the original infantry unit selection, saying you could upgrade the section to include one light machine gun. They never had a light machine gun. What the Poles referred to as a light machine gun was actually a licensed copy of the Browning automatic rifle in 8mm Mauser with some additional improvements made by the Poles. So they've made that change. And again, I don't know if it's because I emailed them or not, but essentially they don't have anything about a machine gun. Now it's up to one man in this motorcycle section, or it's called Polish motorbike section, can be armed with a BA automatic rifle, BAR automatic rifle for 5 points. Perfect, lads. So exactly the way it should be. So I was really, really pleased to see that. I kind of like to feel I had something to do with that correction, but that just might be my ego getting inflated. All right, so let's continue, because there are quite a few other little ones, and I don't know if, and a lot of these are specific to certain platoon selector unit entries, introduced units, like in the campaign books. These aren't actually platoon selectors. The first one that we've got is all the way down on page 28, and this is part of the Duel in the Sun. Now, I've got Duel in the Sun. This book has been around for a long time, and on page 84, there's the 999th Light Africa Division Struff Battalion Squad. Essentially, it's the first line in the option said you should be able to add up to 5 additional men with rifles at 7 points each for inexperienced and 10 points each for regular. Now, I didn't look up what the original writing is in the book. That's what we're going to do here. So they've changed the way that section's built and allow you to bring both inexperienced or regular. Okay. The next unit change is actually from Empire in Flames. That's another one I think has been around for a while. And this is U.S. Marine Corps Raiders, USMC Raiders. Essentially, the change for this, they changed the cost for the veteran squad. So they didn't change the size or the makeup of the squad, but they did change the cost. And for copyright reasons, I don't want to tell you what the point cost is. You can download the FAQ yourself. All right, so with the options, well, actually, I mean, I might as well, because it is a free download. It's 42 points for veteran, and so what it gives you is the option to add up to 7 additional men for up to 14 points each, and that's with rifles. So it's a little change to that unit. Again, I don't have that book, so I don't know exactly what it looked like before this errata. Now, the next one is in the latest D-Day British and Canadian sectors book. There's finally an entry for horse wagons, which is actually an entry that should be in all the early war Allies books as well. The special rule for horse wagon should include slow, with semicolon or colon, if towing a gun. So if a horse-drawn wagon moves at a normal wheeled vehicle rate when it's not towing, but if it's towing, so that means it can go 12. But if it's towing a gun, it can only move 6, and that's a big deal. Okay, especially if you're trying to move around fast. All right, so that's it for the new, either the new units or the changes to the units. So let's take a look now at some platoon selector changes. They're very, very few. Matter of fact, there's only one. Okay, it's in the Mariana and Palau Islands supplement, and essentially this is for the U.S. Marine Saipan list. It is the only list in the book that doesn't include the option for the U.S. Marine Corps, or USMC, War Dog teams. The War Dog was introduced in the Empire of the Flames book earlier, but for some reason this particular selector doesn't have that. So it should say in that selector, under extra selection, you may add 0 to 1 War Dog team in addition to the normal infantry allowed for any reinforced platoon that includes at least 1 unit of U.S. Marines. So essentially, what's interesting in this is they're clarifying the fact that in the U.S. Marine Saipan list, you are able to use the War Dog team because you can pull a USMC infantry squad in that list. So that's the big, little change, I guess, for that particular platoon selector. That's about it. One last little kind of a bonus change. There's a Pegasus Bridge booklet. I'm pretty sure that comes in their Pegasus Bridge kit. It has a few scenarios in it. And in scenario 3, it mentions the British deploy in the shaded area. Obviously, referring to the diagram in the book. But there is no shaded area in the drawing. And they kindly say, "Am I missing something?" And I love the honesty of their answer here. I'll just go ahead and quote it verbatim. Let's say that the British force can deploy anywhere on the table more than 12 inches away from the German setup area. So, yep, an oversight in the artwork they had there. But that's the sum total of the FAQ and errata that have just come out. Those are the changes from everything that was before. So again, I strongly recommend anyone who is just starting out with bolt action to download this and look through the whole thing as it pertains to the main rules and your particular army books or campaign books that you own. That way it'll help you make those corrections. Now you might find that in your books, these corrections are already actually written in, and that's great. But just in case they aren't, double check the FAQ. All right? So I hope this was helpful to you. Share, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.